Our next episode in Star Trek The Next Generation is the episode called Clues. It's episode number 88, and it originally aired on February 11th, 1991. It was written by Bruce D. Arthurs and Joe Menosky from a story by Bruce D. Arthurs, and it was directed by Les Landau. Now, the episode begins as the Enterprise is flying toward an M-class planet to investigate, and a space distortion suddenly appears. Moments later, Data turns in his chair to find the rest of the bridge crew stunned into unconsciousness. When Data revives them, he explains that they passed through an unstable wormhole, and he claims it caused the crew to black out for 30 seconds. Now, because of the unstable nature of the wormhole, the Enterprise continues on its way. Several discrepancies, though, soon show up to challenge Data's version of the events. However, when confronted by Picard, Data refuses to answer any questions. So, seeking to solve the mystery, Picard takes the Enterprise back to the location of the M-class planet. And for the second time, the Paxons attack the ship. They claim they must destroy the Enterprise since the plan failed. Data now explains what really happened. The Paxons are isolationists. Normally, whenever a ship approaches, they stun the crew and tow away the ship. When the crew wakes up, they assume they passed through a wormhole and count their blessings. Using this method, the Paxons conceal their identity. Unfortunately, the stun field didn't affect Data, and while Data defended the ship against them, he awakened the crew. Now, faced with fighting a superior foe, Picard negotiated a compromise. The crew destroyed all knowledge of the Paxons and allowed the Paxons to stun them again, erasing their short-term memory. Now, since the stun field wouldn't work on Data, Picard ordered him never to reveal the Paxons' existence. After Data finishes recounting the events of the first encounter, Picard asks for another chance. He dubs the first time a dry run to shake out the flaws, and the Paxons agree, and as the show ends, Data helps Picard to his feet. Data claims the Enterprise has just passed through an unstable wormhole, and it continues as it did the first time, without the flaws. And that is the end of the episode. Now, there are a number of things to comment about in this episode. One was that this was originally coming off a spec script that was written by a mailman who lived in the Phoenix area. And he gave a very good story, and it just needed a little bit of work, and Joe Menosky then came to polish that a little bit, and he did such a good job at tweaking it that he was actually hired on to be on the staff after that. Now, Les Landau, who directed this episode, considers this to be one of the most difficult assignments that he's had directing an episode, but he also considers it to be one of the most rewarding because of all the challenges that this particular method of storytelling undertook. I'll quote a little bit of what he said here. He says that in order to show different points in time and flashbacks within flashbacks was very difficult. I tried to create a style that was very fluid and singular in its point of view, until the very end when we came back to normal time and the camera work and editing became very cutty. There was a fluidity to all the earlier sequences and a rhythm that, as the show developed before our eyes, became more tempo to show that we were getting closer and closer to real time. There are long takes early on and longer camera moves in the first flashback. In the second one, they're less fluid and long. Finally, when we come back to real time in Act 5, there are static shots where there's hardly any movement and a great deal of editorial cutting to show that we are back in real time. You try and find a thread in every episode you can tell to use to tell the story. It was shot in such a way that it demonstrates what the story's all about, but there are always a shot or two or three that I fall in love with that I put in my cut that don't make it to the screen. So Les Landau did a very specific method and style that was quite challenging here, and I think it turns out beautifully here. I'd also like to comment at the beginning of this episode we see the return of Dixon Hill once again, which goes on with the theme of Season 4 of seeing returns of characters. And we saw Dixon Hill previously in the first season of The Big Goodbye, and then again in the second season in the episode Manhunt, while he's trying to hide from Luxana Troy, who's in heat in that episode. So this time he brings Guinan on board here, and he wants to show how much fun that Picard wants to show Guinan how much fun he's having with this, and Guinan doesn't quite fall into it as much as Picard was hoping. She runs into a couple gangsters and gets held up, and she says, "And this is what you do for fun?" And Picard has to say, "Yep, it's part of the mystery who killed this particular man." But that all leads into kind of showing the relevance that this has in that we're going to be looking at an episode that has to do with mystery and clues. So that's how you kind of attach these two stories here. And then again, we go into a story where we're figuring out, why is Data lying? Is there something wrong with him? And you're kind of led to believe that in the beginning of this episode. He's hiding something, and you think, is there something sinister that's gone on with Data? But then we realize he's actually doing it to protect an alien species, and we find out it's Picard himself who ordered him to lie and not tell anybody else about the Paxton's existence. So I thought that was a very catchy and unique way to solve that particular mystery. And I just have nothing but good things to say about it. I really didn't see anything wrong with this particular episode. Of course, there are plot oversights, as there are with many different episodes here, but I think just the idea of the story was very well done. So comment below and let me know what your thoughts are about it. Did you like this episode as much as I did? And I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't already, please subscribe as well.